Welcome to FutureX, the podcast where we look to solve the variable that is the future of Web3. Every week, we'll talk with some of the brightest minds in the blockchain and Web3 space, from top investors to founders and builders, paving the way for a decentralized world. So what is the future of blockchain? What will Web3 look like in 2050? Let's explore together.
This is Matt at SynFutures, and welcome to today's FutureX session. FutureX is a podcast series for degens, investors, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders in the Web3 world to share their journey and their insights to the Web3 community. And today, we're very happy to have Justin Trollip, CEO at Pangolin, to be our guest. Hi, Justin. Welcome. How about introducing yourself to the audience first?
Matt, thank you for having me. Real pleasure being here. So my name is Justin Trollip. So I'm part of the core team at Pangolin Exchange, decentralized exchange on multiple chains at the moment. So I help out with a bit of the business side of things, a little bit of the development and engineering, pretty much wherever I'm needed within the team.
Thanks, Justin. So we understand Pangolin is a multi-chain decentralized exchange, right? And you joined Pangolin back in May 2021 as the CEO. Before Pangolin, we also understand you work in the as a consultant, right? And solution architect in the tech industry for many years. What was your journey like? Going from consulting and solution architect into the crypto industry, especially into a DEX. Yeah, can you share with us?
Of course. So I discovered Bitcoin in about 2012. At that stage, I was much more.
Wow, that's really early.
Yeah. I mean, at that stage, I was still living in South Africa and we were looking at mining it. And then I moved to Australia. But at that point, so I was still working at that stage more in traditional finance. I just kind of moved out of traditional finance into more of technology. And I was still kind of getting my skills up to scratch. At that point, I couldn't code, or at least my coding skills weren't anything at the required level. And then, I slowly started getting into it. And then Ethereum came out in 2015. And Ethereum was just at that stage, the smart contract solidity, all of that stuff was just beyond where I was technically. And I was still very much kind of, starting my journey into the technical space. So then, I kept an eye on it, kept, seeing how things were progressing as the technology matured. And then in 2020, I discovered Avalanche's consensus mechanism. It's at that point where I thought this is now where the industry's at a mature enough level whereby I can start jumping into it full time. Obviously, I have a young family, so for a long time, jumping into full time was quite risky. And then what ultimately happened was Pangolin was launched actually in February 2021 as a completely fair launch project. So it was all community run. So I started getting involved in the community, started submitting a little bit of PR, like pull requests into the GitHub, and just getting involved in the community. And then in May, June 2021, that's when I was voted in to lead the core team.
I see. If you can share some insights regarding the difference between working in more like traditional finance world into technology and then into working for a DEX, what will be the key differences or the things that newcomers would better have their mind prepared for?
Yeah. Great question. I think you've got to get used to the fact that it's a global operation. So, when you're working in traditional jobs, you go to a 9 to 5, you're working normal hours. When you work in DeFi, that's not the case. You're dealing with people from all over the world. like at weird time zones, and the tools you use to communicate is very different. Email is probably the least used tool, whereas Telegram is kind of like, the de facto kind of tool, as well as, Discord and a few others. So you got to get used to a new tool set. You've also got to be more flexible. And I guess you've got to learn how to get balance. Normally in a traditional job, you can go home at 5, you can turn off, you can, do your kind of stuff. Whereas in crypto, it never stops. So you really have to be a lot more kind of diligent and self-aware to take a step back to kind of look after your mental health.
Yeah, on the mental health one, yeah, I echo with you on that. Yeah, occasionally you do need some time off. Yeah, when the market is a little bit quiet, like for example, the Christmas season.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you, Justin. Now we can move to some topics around Pangolin and your view on decentralization and DEXs, right? So we understand Pangolin is a multi-chain DEX started on Avalanche and now on multiple networks already. And then we noticed that there are many exchanges, centralized or decentralized, and trading platforms in the crypto space. What makes Pangolin different, and why are users so excited about the offer?
Yeah, so I think with Pangolin, where our differences come is that we've embraced the multi-chain future potentially a lot sooner than some of the other DEXs. When DeFi summer occurred, everything was on Ethereum. So when you went to Ethereum, you knew who the DEXs were, you knew who the order compounders were, you knew who the lending protocols were, and you'd go there. Now that the multi-chain ecosystem has expanded, there's this very high cognitive load for users. When you find a new network, say you want to go to Arbitrum or whatever, you've got to understand, okay, what does the local ecosystem look like? How do you bridge into that ecosystem? How do you interact? So with Pangolin, one of our unique selling propositions is that, we're chain agnostic, we're VM agnostic, and in a lot of ways, we're protocol agnostic. So what that means is, no matter which chain you're on, you should be able to do what you need to do on Pangolin. Now, that means that we have to support both EVM, so Ethereum-based chains, as well as non-EVM, so things like Solana, Near, Sui, Aptos, Radix, all of those types of chains, as well as protocol agnostic. So what that means is for Pangolin to expand into each L1 or L2, we would never be fast enough to scale as rapidly as new L1s come onto the market. So we've built a framework that even if we haven't deployed our contracts on that chain, we can support other protocols. So if you go to, for example, Ethereum, our front end will route you through to, whether that's Uniswap or SushiSwap, but the user will still get the best price. So we want to make sure that the user gets the best price, the best experience, no matter which chain they're on, and no matter what they want to do. And that's been quite challenging to build, especially since it's not really the done thing at this stage. But we spent the last year doing that, and we feel it's now getting to a very mature level.
Got it. Yeah, user experience is very important, right? Imagine 2 to 3 years down the road, when the DeFi user grows tenfold from where we are now. Most of the users will be new users, and we've noticed that Pangolin has many updates before on the UI UX side to make the user experience better. So what are your thoughts around that? The user experience in DeFi, let's say versus liquidity, or the speed of the network, etc. So if you were to rank this, where would Pangolin see that come first on this list?
Yeah, so speed of the network is something that's outside of our control. So some networks are going to be fast, some are going to be slightly slower. That's not something we can control. We can kind of guide users to help them understand why certain things take a bit longer. The way I look at user experience is similar to the game of Go. It's been around for, a long time, but to learn the rules, you can pick it up in 10 minutes, but to master it takes a lifetime. And that's kind of the experience we want to create for our users. You can come in, do what you need to do very quickly and understand it, but we can still provide you advanced tools that if you need to do more advanced things, you can grow into those too. Because trading is an inherently, DeFi is an inherently complex thing, trying to make that simple for our users, without then making it daunting. So when you come into DeFi, there's a big risk. Am I going to lose money? Am I going to get rug pulled? Is my money safe? There's this big tension, and our job is to relieve that tension and to make people feel safe. Feel safe, and to guide them through so that they don't make mistakes, and heavens forbid they don't lose money.
The game of Go is a good example. Yeah, yeah, you can learn it in 10 minutes, but need a lifetime to master it. I like it, Justin. I like it.
Cool.
And actually, we've seen recently that with the FTX fallout, many people are talking about moving to the decentralized world, right? Using DEX versus centralized exchanges. And I think that's the silver lining for projects that are born decentralized and continue to be decentralized on multiple chains, just like Pangolin, right? And we see that there are many benefits, right, for users to migrate. And from Pangolin's perspective, what are you seeing in this? Anything that changed in the user experience? There is a user behavior since the FTX thing. Any special offers and benefits you think you can offer for these users who are migrating?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think people are starting to be more paranoid. It's definitely stained the industry. There's been for example, a lot of our users are now questioning things like, why do we do token allowances? Why do we do certain things? They're starting to educate themselves a bit more. Unfortunately, for the broader market, they don't know the nuances of what separates the FTX from what we're doing. So sometimes you get brushed with the same paint, unfortunately. So it's our job to kind of show what are the highlights. Why do we believe DeFi is important? And I always use the example of when you look at all of the liquidations that were occurring with Celsius and all of them. Often the CEOs would come out on Twitter and they'd say everything's fine. Mashinsky famously came out and said everything's fine, and then the next day they were bankrupt. So whereas so those tricks don't work in DeFi. You can't tell a smart contract we're solvent. The smart contract's going to liquidate you if you can't pay, if your collateral drops. So it eliminates a lot of those type of shenanigans and dodgy behavior, and that's the beauty of DeFi. A smart contract, you can't trick a smart contract.
So that the information people get are more, let's say, transparent, right? And especially the state of the solvency and soundness of the assets, right? So all of this, it's beyond the capability of the centralized exchanges. I think that's what people are looking for. Exactly.
Like, for example, at Pangolin, we never take custody of funds. It's in a smart contract, and that smart contract, there's no backdoors. It's audited, it's transparent. If you go to the blockchain, you can read the code, you can confirm there's no backdoors, and I'd encourage people to confirm and to hold us accountable. So we don't have access to your money. Like, so even if we wanted to do illegal things or fraud, we cannot, and that's by design.
That's the beauty, and that's the magic of DeFi. Actually, talking about that, we also understand, there there has been some discussion around regulators' opinions. I think previously there was a mystery saying, DeFi doesn't need any regulation, or other people say, DeFi is the same as FTX and shall be regulated in the same way as centralized exchanges. Well, what's your view on these? Yeah, what's your view overall on regulation? I know we're in a very preliminary stage, and just want to hear your views or your thoughts about what's going to happen in the next couple of years.
Yeah, so for me, I actually think regulation hinders our progress as an industry. I think if we look at where we currently are with regulation, first of all, we've got to understand what is the purported benefits of regulation. And, that's to protect the end users. It's to protect people from losing money and being exposed to things that, that could ultimately leave them financially ruined. Regulation hasn't achieved that goal in the slightest. FTX happened, Luna happened. I don't believe regulation has at any stage helped people be safer. If anything, it's made us less safe. So let's talk about the current state of regulation. Every DeFi project, they go to their lawyers, and their lawyers say, okay, well, if you sell your token in the US, the SEC can come after you. So then what they say, well, you cannot form a company in the US. So you got to go form in an offshore jurisdiction that has, potential other risks for the users, for the project owners, for everything. And then what happens is when the SEC or when any regulators do come after a project, they don't come after the projects that are rug pulling users. I've never seen them come after any of the numerous rug pulls that I've seen in the industry. And there's plenty of them. And it wouldn't be that hard to go subpoena Binance, get those people's KYC information, and go after the rug pulls. Have they come after them? No. So, and what's happened then is it's created this like secondary market where people that profit the most in DeFi are generally lawyers or regulation experts. Whereas like for an efficient industry, you want people to be able to build things that help people, and that build these next financial products that will then usher in the next technological wave. Instead, what we're having to do is there's all of this money being drained into legal services and all of this other stuff that restricts the efficiency from us building the innovation we need. And I get it. Security, if you sell in a financial good with the expectation of profit, there should be certain kind of things that you should adhere to. But then why not say this is a quasi security or this is a crypto security and it has a limited set of guidelines so that we know what we need to do. The current regulation says, okay, well, you have to strip out every financial characteristic from your token or the US is going to come after you. What that means is users end up missing out on the financial upside of DeFi so that we can abide by the threat of the US government. So if anything, they're causing more harm and people to lose more money, in my opinion.
That's a very good point. I think the regulators didn't go after any of the rug pulls, but they could, right? They could. It could have been very easy for them. So that means I think they need to do more for the good of the industry and for the users, right? And of course, the regulatory regime and the policies definitely need to evolve to adopt to where we already are in terms of business development and technology development in this industry. I think so. Yeah, maybe it's time to give them more educations.
we want to be friends. Ultimately, we should be working together on this. And at the moment, it's very combative and adversarial, which it's not going to help either party.
Yes, Justin, I think you made a good point. We need to build more communication bridges and to work together, right, with the regulators. We're also guiding them towards the right directions. At the end of the day, I think the people in the industry and regulators would like to see the industry really grow and use this technology to foster better forms of financial services, and at the same time protect the users. So still a long way to go on that side as well. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Justin, now we move to the next part and want to hear your opinions on basically the markets, the industry, and the future vision. So first, we have to say this is a bear market, and for the projects who keep building in the bear markets, I think the communities and the overall entrepreneurs, the Web3 world will give big appreciation to. Yeah, I think Pangolin is a perfect case. But do you see any challenges in this bear market and any mitigations of this from your side?
Yeah, I think bear markets are pretty good, because ultimately it does kind of cull some of the unnecessary fluff from the market. So in that regard, it's good. It can be quite painful to go through, but it makes people understand that what is your cash flow look like? What are you building? How efficient are you? I think sometimes in DeFi, because it's such a new space, we miss some of the fundamentals from traditional businesses. Things like defining what is our operational costs of producing things. So we're producing software for people to use. So the bear market, I think, is very challenging for some of the wild behavior that a bull market encourages. So a lot of projects that I see in the bull market, they weren't making money from their protocols, they were making money from speculation. And if you're building a DeFi protocol, you're not an investment house. That's not your core business. So you're probably not going to be that good at it. And when the bull comes and you lose your treasury because you're speculatively long on some dog coins, that was probably a bad decision. So I think the bear market validates the people that were responsible and behaved themselves during the excesses of the bull market. So luckily we're quite boring internally at Pangolin. We're not out there doing anything crazy. We run this like a traditional operation, right? And for me, bear markets are quite nice, because we can build, we can learn about new technology, we can do the stuff I love. Bull runs are like exhausting emotionally, because it's just like intense. So I guess it depends what you're here for. I'm here to build cool stuff. That's why I came into the space. So bear markets for me, I quite enjoy it. Yeah.
I like the way you mentioned this, right? So managing the treasury fund as a traditional business, rather than doing speculation, and we've seen some projects actually kind of lost their treasury in this speculation, and then even if they have good product, the team will no longer exist, right? So that would be a big pity. Yeah, actually, at SynFutures, we adopt the same philosophy as you guys do at Pangolin. Yeah, managing the treasury fund in a very safe way, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure the core developers and the communities wouldn't need to worry about money, right? They just need to focus in developing. So that's the purpose why we're here, why we're building. Yeah. And we've also seen, there have been, let's say, some projects going, let's say, out of business, or some sectors losing traction. In your views, are there any overhyped sectors you think will eventually fizzle out, or will not survive until the next bull cycle comes?
Yeah, when I saw this question, I thought about it quite a long time. It's a great question, because I think some people would, I think GameFi survives. I think GameFi is a good use case for blockchain. I think NFTs in its current iteration evolves, and NFTs has a lot of exciting potential. controversially, I think we're getting to a point where I think L1s are maybe overhyped. And I think L1s that don't then choose a sovereign country, like an Ethereum, like a Cosmos, like a Polkadot, or, Avalanche, I think those L1s are going to struggle to be their own islands. At some point, everyone's going to have to say, am I going to be an Ethereum rollup? Am I going to be an app chain? Am I going to be, connected to this broader ecosystem? I think the standalone L1s, barring Bitcoin, that's going to change over the next few years, where everyone's going to have to pick a side.
I see. So basically, some of the siloed L1s living by themselves may have a hard time for survival, right?
That's my prediction. Whether it works,
Yeah. I mean, we're also on different networks, so we see that different characteristics and user crowds in different L1s. But absolutely, for those that are relatively siloed with their own assets rather than connected to the networks like Ethereum or the overall EVM ecosystem or other ecosystems, I think we would have a hard time. Yeah, I will put down my money for that, for your bet. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, thanks for sharing the insights that alpha. Yeah. And let's look beyond the next 3 to 5 years to maybe 30 years later, right? So 27 for actually by 2050. Yeah. Let's assume crypto is mainstream, Web3 is mainstream. What do you think the world would be look like? Not only in the Web3 world, but also in the real world, if there are certain applications that we have never imagined yet.
Yeah, so this is a great question. Like, I love this question, actually. I think, like, I'm an optimist at heart. I think I wouldn't be building in DeFi if I wasn't an optimist at heart. So the way I see the world hopefully evolving is to a world of abundance and less scarcity. So when we talk about abundance, you talk about, cheaper energy for all, advances in food production so that, there's less hunger, so if we migrate, currently society is in this like we're a scarce society, resources are scarce. If we migrate to a future where resources are abundant, what does that look like? So, there's a brilliant novel by Ian M. Banks that deals with what like a post-scarcity environment looks like or future.
Mm-hmm.
And what they have is this concept of the mines, which is artificial intelligence, which actually regulates the abundance for all. So, one of the big problems with humans is, greed always takes us, right? Power corrupts, power corrupts absolutely. So if you had a human being that was in charge of distributing, electricity, money, resources, that person's going to get corrupted. It's history is littered with examples of this.
It's human nature.
So it's human nature, right? So so if we have abundance, I see AI and distributing that abundance in a fair manner. Then I think humans kind of evolve into this like post-work structure. My hope would be that we then can focus on arts, things that like are intrinsic to all of us, and we can move away from some of the drudgery of day-to-day living. That's my hope, and I think Bitcoin and cryptocurrency facilitates that. Especially now, we're very beholden to the whims of governments and the whims of global kind of conflicts and machinations of capitalism. So I think if we can move past that and there's an alternative to that, it also adds a regulating effect on these traditional entities to behave better. Like if you're constantly printing money and your central bank is constantly raising interest rates and causing a lot of heartbreak for a lot of people within the economy, but currently they don't have an alternative. if they do have an alternative, it keeps those governments in check. Just like, they talk a lot about like how corporate tax rates keeps governments in check because, businesses will move if your corporate tax rates are too high. I think same thing happens with Bitcoin. As soon as you've got an alternative to sovereign money, it keeps the traditional players in check. They can't misbehave as much.
This is a good point. Yeah. So basically, you're saying today the cryptocurrency will be the facilitator of a better world that will come, right? For human beings to live in abundance and getting better distributed of the resources, right, by technologies, rather than by human beings. Right?
That's my hope. Who knows? It's my hope. That's our job to make sure that future eventuates.
That's great. Yeah, let's all work together to build towards that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you, Justin. Yeah. Thank you very much for the sharing today. We'll close the session, and thank you, everyone. Again, if you have any questions, follow-ups, feel free to share with us. We'll pass to Justin, and then we'll have more interesting FutureX sessions to come. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the FutureX podcast. Subscribe on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this episode.